Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with the midweek update in the world of cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it, as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. We're going to start with this surprising and great news that we got last night overall, as Twitter has announced major policy changes effective immediately, now allowing cannabis advertisers to promote content only. So it's not that they can sell cannabis through Twitter, obviously. That would be amazing, but content is a good start for CBD, THC, and cannabis services across the U.S., officially becoming the largest 420-friendly social network. And so, thank God Elon Musk bought Twitter, because obviously this wouldn't have happened otherwise. While Twitter's not real life, I still think it's great news from big tech, because they've got 450 million approximate users based on a recent Google search, and of that 450 million, obviously a large portion of them likely reside in the U.S., and they can now be promoted cannabis content. So, what do you think? Let me know. The link will be in the description for this, and then also from Twitter Business, just highlighting the new rules. This is just for the U.S. Link will be in the description if you want to go through it. So obviously you can't sell cannabis through Twitter. That would be the dream. Maybe one day. The sales news out of Connecticut: more than 5 million worth of adult use cannabis sold in Connecticut in January. And so this is from January 10th when they launched their adult use market to the end of the month. Obviously, if they open more legal outlets to compete with the black market and phase it out, and of course legally supply the demand, they would have sold a lot more, but it's a good start. And since legalizing Jan 10th to the 31st, the combined sales of adult use and medical cannabis were more than 13.3 million, according to the State Department of Consumer Protection. And so that is 5.1 million for adult use and then 8.2 for medical, which is very interesting because out of other markets, we see usually when they legalize, we see a big jump in rec sales and a big drop in med sales. And so I don't know what's different about Connecticut's program than others. So if you do, let me know in the comments. But just found that interesting to point out. So you can see a little bit more. Link will be in the description. Otherwise, we move on. New Cannabis Ventures shows us Michigan cannabis sales softened in January, which is to be expected after the big jump in December. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the link will be in the description and I'll allow you to pause to read. Michigan cannabis sales sank 6.5% in January compared to December and increased 35.9% from a year ago to a record 207.3 million. So it was a bit faster than the 32% annual growth in December and the fastest since February 2022. So we like to hear that. Of course, you can pause to read for a bit more of a breakdown. Link will be down below, and you can pause to read for more on wholesale prices in this very competitive market. And so with that, thanks Todd for sharing this news story from Marijuana Moment that we've seen many times before, so we take it with a grain of salt, because while we'd love to see Congress do their job, Chuck Schumer's word means shit after all the nothing that they've done. And so Schumer meets with GOP senators to discuss cannabis legislation for new Congress. What's different this time? Apparently he convened with a group of GOP senators to discuss next steps for crafting a passable bill, but one source confirmed banking was a key issue that they discussed. So take from that what you will. I'm not spending too much time on it until something happens, but also from Marijuana Moment, Senate panel set to vote on Veterans Cannabis Research Bill this week. The vote is set for tomorrow, and so while this does sound promising, as American veterans ought to have gotten the care and attention necessary, and cannabis has proven to be a potential remedy for a lot of what they're going through, regardless, the reality is there are over 30,000 studies already on pubmed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov that highlight the potential benefits of cannabis as well. And so it's just interesting to note that, again, is this bill actually going to help veterans, or is it going to be designed in a way that's going to give more control over the government and how they can, design these studies? I don't know, just thinking out loud, but obviously hate to see Marijuana Moment sell out and just place more ads on their site. Makes me want to use it less and less. I understand why they do it, but just to highlight the VA Medicinal Cannabis Research Act, which is intended to mandate studies by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, like there aren't enough already that they could look through, to explore the therapeutic potential benefit of veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and chronic pain. So it's just a waste of time to, facilitate new studies when we have so many that they could just be looking through. Is on the agenda for Senate Veterans Affairs Committee business meeting on Thursday. And so I will report on this after the vote and have more for you hopefully on Sunday, but the link is below if you wanted to read through it all the way. And so with that, some news out of New York, a complete joke again. All of the employees for the New York Office of Cannabis Management ought to have been fired like a year and a half ago, but they're happy to celebrate the opening of their third legal dispensary to hopefully counter the 1,400 illegal outlets making a killing because they can operate freely without consequence. It's outrageous, it's embarrassing, and it's flat out wrong. And while this is just my opinion, the only way I can see that these Office of Cannabis Management employees think that they're doing a good job is that they went through the same leftist education that I went through, and instead of at some point questioning the indoctrination, they've just gone paycheck do what you're told for a paycheck. That's the only way I can see the creation of these closet communists without them realizing it. That's the only way I can see how these folks can even brag about being committed to social action, empowerment, and equity, which in the Marxist context means making everyone equally poor through top-down control, because clearly they're not looking at the consequences or the outcomes of their actions. It's just they're focused on the paycheck. That's all that matters. Now, am I onto something or am I crazy? Let me know in the comments what you think. But to prove that, just again to highlight, thank you MJ Stock Trader for pointing this out. Everyone predicted this. When you have 1,400 illegal cannabis stores, they are easy targets. This will transition to the legal stores without safe banking, and now police have to waste resources protecting criminals who are operating illegally, getting robbed by criminals, taking advantage of the whole situation because Congress won't pass safe. As Rise in NYC bookshop shootings has NYPD on high alert. You literally can't make this shit up. And what sucks the most is that after so much time and so little action, you'd hate to believe it, but it's almost starting to look like this is being done on purpose. And so last story out of New York, another day comes another story of New York mismanagement. This is an opinion piece by an entrepreneur named Joe Hodas on how New York botched its cannabis rollout. And so while he does touch on how the loophole in the Farm Bill needs to be closed so that these synthetic cannabinoids are no longer flooding the market, because no one wants synthetic cannabinoids anyways when you can just have access to cannabis, main thing I want to touch on is what he says here about New York. Against this backdrop, I recently took a trip to New York to better understand the market before my company launches there. What I found was shocking. Stores on every corner of Times Square openly, brazenly, and illegally selling cannabis. No ID, no testing, no child-resistant packaging. Just come in, buy your product, and walk out of the Disney store. So what incentive do you have to be a legal operator in the state? Absolutely none. There are stores that 6 months ago were selling those Delta 8 products, maybe cell phones and NYC keepsakes. And so this is, again, just to highlight the reality in New York, because the Office of Cannabis Management sucks at their job and they need to be replaced immediately. But more on this story, one from Marijuana Moment as well. DEA classifies novel cannabinoids Delta 8 and 9 THCO as controlled substances, even when synthesized from legal hemp. Well, I don't know anything about these cannabinoids because I only use flower. I imagine it's also not cannabis, and so ideally you don't want the streets flooded with this product. But all I really see out of this is that instead of doing their job in descheduling, the DEA creates a new synthetic market and a new way to criminalize cannabis. Again, you just cannot make this shit up. And so a little bit on it, DEA sent a response letter on Monday saying the two cannabinoids do not occur naturally in the cannabis plant and can only be obtained synthetically and therefore do not fall under the definition of hemp. Well, this sounds like a new problem. It is certainly not caused by cannabis legalization, but instead the loophole in the Farm Bill, and whether that was put there by design or not, who knows, and the fact Congress has not done their job to pass safe. So cash stays on the streets, organized crime runs rampant, and they get more powerful. Sad, but true. And so on to MSO News. Thank you, Orlando Weekly, for reporting Trulieve contributes another $5.5 million to get rec cannabis on Florida's 2024 ballot. Love to see Trulieve putting their money where their mouth is, because sadly in this day and age, it seems like you just have to pay to play. And so, pause to read if you want to get more on that. While we've got news that Columbia Care opens its 8th dispensary in Virginia. So, love to hear this. It is a med dispensary only, but newest location marks company's 4th Virginia dispensary opening in the last 3 months. And so, a little bit more here if you wanted to pause to read. And while this would have been bigger news had Virginia made progress on passing their cannabis legalization bill, which would launch their legal adult use market for medical dispensaries already operating in the state, unfortunately, we just got this news that Virginia Republican-led subcommittee again rejects cannabis sales legislation in party line vote. You can't make this shit up. It's almost like they want to create chaos. Maybe they do. Republican members of the House General Laws Subcommittee halted any further advancement today of Senate Bill 1133, which sought to initiate retail cannabis sales to adults aged 21 and older beginning this July. Though the bill passed the Senate with bipartisan support, subcommittee members rejected the measure on a 5-3 party line vote. And get this, Virginia's legalization law, they've essentially decriminalized cannabis in 2021 and have yet to launch their market, which does what? Creates a black market, allowing it to proliferate. And, you know, it's, again, just the legal operators that sadly lose out. And so you can pause to read or more on the link below. Sad news out of Virginia, but we keep fighting. And so MJ Biz Daily, thanks for sharing. Massachusetts extends allowance for curbside cannabis pickup and telemedicine. And so great to hear this. I don't see why they wouldn't just implement this after so much time. But apparently the State Cannabis Control Commission relaxed certain in-person requirements in March 2020. And renewed them a year later. Now they're renewing them again. Why don't you just implement them? Don't get it, but at least the patients are getting easier access to the safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative that they need. Got this one out of Minnesota. Thanks, Marijuana Moment, as cannabis legalization bill approved in 8th House Committee and 6th Senate panel. So continues to make its way through. Love to see that, and I will update you once this finally becomes law, as Minnesota is another market we're looking to unlock soon. Link below if you wanted to read more. While Louisiana lawmakers file cannabis legalization bills for 2023, I want to ensure that when it's legal, that it's Louisiana citizens that have the opportunity to take part in this economic opportunity. What do you know? A lawmaker actually working for the people and their constituents for once. And if they want to focus on making sure everyone gets equal access to opportunity, equity is not the way. So love to see this out of a red state. Another link below in the description if you wanted to read through it. Well, we got this one from Hirsch Jane, or a few from him, but thank you for sharing these, Hirsch, as a new bill introduced in Arizona. SB 1494 in AZ would require insurance to cover medical cannabis. which would be huge, and again, helps normalize the plant, would make medical cannabis cost comparative with opiates, which insurance covers, similar to reforms that a company called Cure and Life has helped enact in Colombia. So big potential. This comes from Arizona Normal, so just wanted to share it. Thank you, Hirsch Jane, for that one. While Hirsch just highlights, again, the hilarity that we're seeing out of California, again, a very leftist state, implementing terrible policy, high taxes, sadly just creates a very strong illegal market, much like we're seeing in New York, because the incentive to go illegal is greater than, jumping through the ridiculous regulatory hoops. And so with that case study of local control in California, November 2016, Costa Meza votes for Prop 64 by wide margin. 2017 to 2019, survey shows strong resident support for legal shops. City ignores will of the people. November 2020, voters pass retail ballot measure. February 2023, no stores open, city backed up. Just absolutely ridiculous. So what do you think is the main cause of this? But also just going to show for a bit more context. So thank you, Hirsch, again, for just highlighting some of the ridiculousness in a lot of these leftist states that have some parasitic ideology problems. And so with that, leafly sharing, these states could legalize cannabis next in 2023. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but just going to quickly roll through. You can grab the link if you're interested. Delaware, some progress going on there. Hawaii as well, lots of progress. But again, I only really want to share the stories once they actually get something done and we see definitive action. But Maryland as well, working towards that. Minnesota, as I highlighted. Ohio, working towards it as well. Oklahoma, and they're going to be voting on March 7th for adult use, and so that's almost less than 4 weeks away now. Pennsylvania and South Carolina and Wisconsin, even more than I was expecting. And so again, these are states that could, not states that will, but love to see the progress happening on the state level because that's where it essentially does happen. And so with that, High Times shares this data finds hemp hulls contain bioactive compounds supporting gut health, which is less surprising if you already know that hemp seeds are the healthiest of all seeds. And to back that up, here are a few sources from a series I made in 2020 calling to end the stupid failed war on drugs and cannabis prohibition, because clearly it's not working. But is that why hemp was so hard to get for so long and still more difficult to get than all these other seed oils that have been converted into vegetable oil and now sell at a mass scale, which unfortunately just clogs our arteries? Now call me crazy, but if this is true, could that be another reason why cannabis has been illegal for so long and put in the Schedule 1 classification where it never belonged in the first place, and at the same time we don't see any effort for hemp seed oil as a healthier alternative to canola and olive oil? Again, just thinking out loud, because as time goes on, it seems more and more obvious that the government just wants you unhealthy so that you become dependent on the corporations that fund them and unfortunately will make money off of you. But I digress. Hemp has plenty of industrial applications, we know that, and while some consumers might tout the benefits of ingesting hemp for constipation, high cholesterol, eczema, arthritis, and other conditions, evidence supports these uses is still limited. However, new preclinical data suggests that hemp hulls contain some essential helpers for your gut. And of course, if we descheduled, we could find out a lot more. Biosciences and artificial intelligence company Brightseed announced the preclinical data published in peer-reviewed Journal of Food Bioactives last week. The findings show that two bioactive compounds found in hemp hulls, NCT and NFT, have the potential to support gut barrier function. So very interesting. Not going to go through this whole thing, but article featured below if you want to learn a bit more. While we got this one out of Cannabis Health out of France, but essentially same style as Marijuana Moment, it looks like. 91% of patients on France's medical cannabis trial support legalization. The majority of patients have reported positive outcomes. So again, we love more data like this because it is in line with what we already know and what that the mainstream refuses to acknowledge, but they can only do that for so long. And so you can pause to read, but the main thing to highlight at the beginning of the trial, 81% of patients had severe or unbearable pain. After 6 months, over a third of patients are said to have reported a decrease of more than 30% in the intensity of their neuropathic pain. So it seems like the perception is altered. Sounds promising. According to the standardized questionnaire, the Patient Global Impression of Change scale, the improvement was significant or very significant for just over 40% of patients by the third month. Again, why we ought to deschedule cannabis and start this research. Should have done it 50 years ago. The data on the effects of medical cannabis on palliative care was taken from 150 patients with an average of 54 years old. So again, small study, but cannabis was perceived to have a significant impact on patients' health over an average treatment time of 3 months. So yay to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative. And so wanted to share some hilarity as Kevin Sabet, one of the famous drug propagandists with 27 followers, tweeted this yesterday at 8:36 p.m. More propaganda as young Colorado children are consuming cannabis despite efforts. And again, that's all on the parents, has nothing to do with the substance itself. But imagine that, having an account with 27,000 followers, getting 4 likes, 2 retweets, 1 quoted tweet, and 289 views. That's it. So clearly no one believes this crap anymore, which is a good sign for us. And even funnier, the other day he tweets about a change to some legislation apparently in Amsterdam, celebrating it, saying, oh, they realized cannabis legalization doesn't work, and now they're walking back. Well, the reality is it was actually just a smoking ban, and so I found this. So some perspective on the Amsterdam cannabis smoking ban announced yesterday. It only concerns a tiny part of the city, literally the red light district, the dark red part of the map on the left. So it has nothing to do with reversing any sort of legal legislation. and it was just this. So he was trying to make it seem like, oh, Amsterdam is going back to prohibition because it wasn't working. What an idiot. So very happy to see that no one is buying their bullshit anymore. So last few stories, Don Murphy, MLC, Director of Government Relations, will be joining Mayor Tobey for Cannabis Chat, Capitol Hill edition this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's open to all. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. So you can grab the link below in the description if you want to tune in. It's at 7 p.m. tonight, and no doubt after BJJ, I will be tuning in because Don Murphy has proven himself to be a real person, and he's very active and optimistic, even more optimistic than when the Dems controlled the House and the Senate, now with a Republican-controlled House. And so we need more Dons, essentially, is the point here. And so if you are close to DC at all, please consider sending him a message because I know he's very responsive. He even thanked me for featuring him in my channels through a message. And if I wasn't in Canada and if it was easy for me to go, I would want to go spend a day or two with him just to get the experience. And I know another viewer, Tara Norman, did that, and it seemed like it gave her a lot of hope in realizing that we have a lot more power than we're led to believe, right? And so anyways, I just encourage you to send him a message if you can go to DC and, you know, walk around with him for a day and see what it's like, because ultimately we just got to remember that the power comes from us and keep fighting this fight, because at some point the dam's got to break. And so with that last bit, safe banking action alert from MPP or marijuanapolicyproject.org, trying to make it easier to help pass federal cannabis reform by contacting your senator today. So folks, please, if you can, I encourage you to reach out to your state reps and demand safe passing, because it'll make America safer, get cash off the streets, and help normalize an industry that employs over 500,000 Americans. But apparently this makes it easy. So please fill in your contact info below, then click next to edit and send your message to your state senator. So of course, I think directly is better, but at the same time, this is a resource. Link will be below. If you don't mind trying this again, we do not give up the fight. And that is it for today's episode, folks, but I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned today? Let me know if you have any questions or suggestions in the comments. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will see you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody.